So Sean is asking, which book in the Bible is the best for new believers to understand Jesus and Christianity?
And if you don't mind me saying, my personal opinion is I would say the book of John is perfect as far as understanding Jesus and Christianity. The chapter begins with saying, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." So it points to Jesus as creator. And then goes into who Jesus was, and then goes right into his ministry and his baptism, and it's just shows so clearly the love of God. I love the book of John. And then, to follow, John also wrote, his three epistles, or I hope I'm saying that right, not epistles, right? He wrote the Gospel of John, and they wrote the three epistles of John. So first, second, and third John, which first John is fantastic. Also understanding the love of God and also how we overcome sin through God's love. So I would say those are really great. And then, of course, John wrote the book of Revelation, which I'd say wait wait till you've read the some of the Old Testament first, and
Yes.
some of the
The
new before
final
you get
exam.
what's that?
I always say Revelation is the final exam.
Yeah, the final exam. Exactly. So wait a little bit on Revelation, just because you need to get some background and some knowledge first. But I'd say John, the Gospel of John is fantastic, and then of course the three epistles of John, and then even First and Second Peter are really great too. But I'd say John first. Like, that's what I would say. John, and then the three epistles, and then going into First and Second Peter, and going back to the Gospels, and then reading the New Testament through, and then Old Testament. And yeah, you'll just never stop. It's just awesome how wonderful God's word is. So I hope that
I
helps.
I
Any thoughts?
I I largely agree with you on that, although I want to add one thing, which is I think when it comes to anybody, new believers, existing, people who are less new, the most important thing, like what is best, is what is relevant to them.
Mm,
What is meaningful to them in what they are searching for and seeking. And so if they're seeking something, if there's a particular topic that is particularly of interest or of importance to them in life, then meeting them where they're at
mm,
is actually the most helpful way of helping them to understand Jesus and Christianity.
yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
and it's interesting. People identify that each gospel does have a different focus. So, like for example, Matthew is showing the how Jesus sort of is the Messiah, the fulfillment of the prophecies, and the King to come. So, if someone really likes to understand Jesus's fulfillment of prophecy and his how he fits into the Old Testament, then that Matthew might be the good starting point. Mark is really telling a story of Jesus aimed for the Romans, who were all about Jesus, who is powerful and efficient, and so Jesus is always doing amazing miracles, going here quickly and quickly going there, and so he's appealing to that. And it's also the shortest book, so fastest moving, shortest book. And then Luke is focusing really on the humanity of Christ and his
Mhm.
concern for the poor, for the sick, and all that. So if your friend really might be wanting that aspect of Jesus, then maybe he might like Luke, even though it's the biggest of the Gospels. And then, yeah, John. John is my favorite too. Like Tina, I love John. It's so poetic. It's just so
Yeah,
mind blowing. And
yeah,
John is really trying to capture, I think, both the love. It's a different aspect of the love of Christ,
yeah.
the love of that Christ expects his followers to have,
Mhm.
and then especially the deity of Christ. Nobody brings out the deity of Christ as
Mm,
more so than John. And
yeah,
then, yeah, I concur reading John's letters, like First, Second John, especially. Those are
yeah,
um, great spot to begin to understand God.
yeah. And the reason why I think Matthew and Luke, as much as they're fantastic, they do a lot of the genealogies, and I feel like that kind of like, I think that's why a lot of people get overwhelmed in the Old Testament and they give up with the Bible, because they're like, oh, who and so
Yeah,
beget so and so. It's like, what?
skip those chapters.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Skip. So if you do those books are great, but yeah, maybe just don't worry about that as much. But they're still really good.